We got Bikky in the van today.
Happy to be here. Yeah.
So what we're doing is we're just talking. We're just chatting.
Sounds good.
We're just I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about what you do and how you're
Absolutely. Yeah.
change the
Change the world. Change the
marketplace.
Yeah. So I'm Abhinav, co-founder, CEO of Bikky. We help restaurants with customer data, analytics, all the boring stuff. Where I think like when I started the company, I focused so much on data. And the reason I was inspired to start this company is my mother-in-law was a restaurant operator, and I walked in one day and she was literally writing down a phone number off a delivery tablet. I was like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "I recognize this person's name on the tablet, so I'm just gonna call him." I'm like, "That's baller. No one ever calls me after a delivery order." And then we're at our house at the weekend, and I'm like, "What are you doing now?" And she's like, "Well, I'm on OpenTable. I'm trying to email everybody that made a reservation, just see if they had a good experience. If they come back, there's something we could do better." And as I kind of dug into her tech stack, I realized she had like 10 years of phone numbers in her POS, 20 years of OpenTable data, 5 years of online ordering data, and she just wasn't doing anything with it. And, I think it always struck me that the way she knew her guests was by literally being in the store 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, touching tables, knowing their names, their faces, what they eat, what they drank. And there was just no like personal relief for her. You know what I mean? Like when she was at the restaurant, she's like, I don't know my guests. I don't know what's happening. I don't know who they are. And so the initial vision was this, just being obsessed with this idea of like, how do we give her access to this data, not for the sake of data, but to really just understand who are these people and are they coming back more often? Are they coming back less often? If she changes the menu, how does that change, how guests visit the brand? And I think like to tie it back to the beginning, like when I initially started, I was so focused on the data that I really missed what is magical about this industry, which is the data and the menu and the operations is all in service of serving the guest and doing a better job of engaging the guest and keeping the guest. Because it's a hard business, but when it works, it's really special. And so the way we think about data now is just like data is something that everybody wants, everybody likes. No one's going to say no to. Everybody wants more data.
Yeah.
But really framing it in a way that helps a restaurant operator understand what to do with it.
Yeah.
And serve their needs and serve their goals of just getting closer to the guest, better understanding the guest, better serving the guest. So I started the business 6.5 years ago, and it's been quite the journey to the point where I'm in a van in Lombard, Illinois, talking with you now about it.
I know. You never know where you're going to end up on the journey. So,
yeah.
Well, okay. So tell us, why don't you break it down for all of the non-restaurateurs?
Yeah.
I have tens of millions of billions, maybe even subscribers in all different industries.
Yeah.
They might not be familiar with what exactly you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's pretty amazing that, the way I like to think about it is restaurants are in the business of understanding the guest, but they don't really know who is the person behind the transaction. At the end of the day, restaurants are still 10 years behind where retail was, right? We're now where retail, 10 years from now, retail is, or restaurants will be where retail is hopefully today, where when you place an order, the restaurant can say, okay, this is a new person.
Yeah.
We've never seen them before. If they come back, okay, this is how long it took them to came back. This is how frequently they came back. This is the item or the product that they ordered that made them want to come back again. Or this is the product that they ordered that maybe they had a bad experience with and didn't come back again. And restaurants just have been blind to really understanding their customers at this foundational level, again, which is ironic because you're serving people every single day.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we pull all that data from, the many different systems in the restaurant, from the point of sale, from the payments, from the online ordering, from the reservation provider, all those places where my mother-in-law was scrambling around and trying to capture it. We try to bring that into one place so that, you have a single source of truth of who are your guests, what do they like, what do they don't like, what makes them loyal, what makes them stop coming back, what makes them come more often, less often, and really try to answer some of the key questions about the business that restaurants have had for the eternity of this business, but haven't really been able to answer because, again, you either don't have the data or you're just looking at sales. Sales are up, sales are down.
You don't know.
And you don't know why, right? And then, at larger brands, it's typically like you have a team of people. And one of the things I like to say is like we replace spreadsheets and yelling.
Yeah.
Because usually you're just exporting the data for all these systems, dropping in a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And again, it's just sales.
Yeah.
And then everybody's yelling at each other about why sales are up or why sales are down. And they're like, well, it was my thing that made sales go up. And it was your thing that made sales go down. Or yes, I know I'm in charge of that department, but the weather was bad and that's why sales went down. And so I think just stripping out the opinion around it and the gut assumptions, which which I think a lot of the industry still operates on today, and just trying to give them, again, the data to make the right decisions to grow the business.
So, I mean, because a lot of that, I mean, it's all critical, and it's always been critical, but I think in recent years, with the way we've changed, not only because of COVID, but just simply through technology and access, it's really having a compounding dynamic shift in customer ordering preferences. And so are you seeing some of that? How are you going to help kind of usher some of that change into this is what we do now, and that's why it has to be so specific.
It's pretty crazy. I was talking about it. So I at this conference, I was hosting a panel or like a lunch round table, and I think one of the things that I was saying to them that we've noticed in our data is a delivery customer is different than an in-store customer, is different from a drive-through customer, is different from a pickup customer, right? Like the restaurant business 20 years ago, it was one model. Location mattered, but people came in, you gave them a good experience, they went on their way, and they didn't really have many ways to order, right? And then pre-pandemic, I would say, I started seeing a little bit of growth of online ordering and delivery. And then obviously during the pandemic, it became the only way to order from restaurants. And now with the pandemic in the rear view, it's not like people have stopped using any of those channels, right? And the occasion, though, of how they use those channels has totally changed. And so the story I like to tell is, like, if I'm going to order direct from a brand, it's because I know I want that brand. I want a sandwich. I know I want to order Jersey Mike's. I'll open the app. I'll order Jersey Mike's. But when I'm just hungry and I don't know what I want, I'm going to open the third-party delivery channel, right? And even if I order from one of the same 5 places I always order from, the journey always starts with I'm hungry, right? And the reason that I'm ordering it from my couch is because I got 2 young kids at home and I don't have time to get them in the car, drive them there, park, get them out of the car, go get the food and come back. So I'm going to place a digital order instead of an in-store order. So again, it's like the way in which restaurants and food fits into our lives has totally changed over the past, 5 to 7 years. And I think like one of the things that we see is like people who order on third-party delivery come back faster than the people who order directly from the restaurant. And I think that's like in some cases twice as fast, right? Like it might take 90 days if I order direct from Pita Pit, it might take 90 days for me to come back for my second order. But what we see is people order on third-party delivery, it takes them 45 days. And so, like, that's just a totally different customer and a totally different way of marketing to them, interacting with them, engaging them, and trying to keep them loyal to the brand. And so it's like nuggets like that where it's like, again, this goes back to what I was saying in the beginning, where it's like, it's not just about data for data's sake. It's about taking the data, crunching it down in a really simple way where an operator says, oh my God, I didn't know that before, and now I know that, and here's what I'm going to do about it as a result.
Yeah, because that's a really interesting part. That was a part of a discussion I was having yesterday with somebody about a question came up about, what tactics work for this type of thing, and it's like, well, your question's a little off because what kind of behavior are you trying to elicit from the customer? Because you can't just say what kind of offer is going to get them to come in. It's like, forget the fact that it's always going to be industry specific and dessert versus breakfast versus but what do you want to get out of it? What are you trying to get them to do? And if you don't know to even at least ask that question, first you got to know the answer to that question, which is hard. But even to know to ask that question is something that a lot of people stop a little bit short of. And so then even they're either looking at data or they're looking at collated data, but they still don't know what their real goals are. And so even then it still just becomes data. It's just more organized now. So having more tools that can make it so that people don't have to come up with the question themselves. It's kind of sorting through that and saying, so now you're looking at it and they don't need to ask the question themselves. The data is giving them the answer before they are even required to ask.
And I think that's like something that we did not do well for a long time. Like I remember getting the first version of the product to my mother-in-law, and she's like, what do I do with this? And also, especially if you're a small operator, you don't have time. Like the way I think about it is she was always working in the business, not on the business, right? Like there would be times where she's like, it's Saturday afternoon and she's home with my kids and her grandkids. And she's like, I need to go to the restaurant. It's like, why? And she's like, delivery guy's sick. So I just got to go in and, kitchen is fine. I'm just going to walk the orders to people's houses, to people's apartments. And it's like, that's insane.
Like, why a waste of your time?
Right, exactly. And there's no data in the world that's going to fix something like that, right? Like that's just, you got to be in it to understand.
Operate.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't stop.
Exactly.
You can't cure being an operator.
Yeah, that's right. You can't. And so I think like one of the things that we've gotten better at is, understanding the questions that operators usually face about their business. Like, I launched a new menu item. Did it bring in new customers? I raised my prices. I know that my average check's going to go up, but people are going to come less often. Like, how bad did I hurt? Frequency.
Yeah.
Right? Like basic foundational questions of, are more people coming? Are they not coming? How are they coming less often because of all these decisions that you make?
Yeah.
And again, like we've just gotten better at trying to help people not just look at the product and know, or like, and say, what is this? But look at the product and be like, all right, I got an idea of what I can do with this.
That's stupid.
So yeah, it's been a fun journey. I think the best part about being an entrepreneur is you always learn so much about yourself as an individual. I think, this is the longest job I've ever had, honestly. Like, starting my company is the longest job I've ever had. It's been 7 years now. And I think I've pushed myself in ways that I never would have expected to. I've learned so much about myself as like a CEO, but also more importantly, as a husband, as a father, as a son, as a brother, like all of these, when you're building a business, to what we were talking about earlier, it's so easy to get lost in building the business that you can have a tendency to ignore the other roles in your life. And I think, you veer back in this other direction of like, you feel like you're never giving enough of yourself to the company. You're never giving enough of yourself to your family, to your partner, to your parents, etc. And we've gotten, thankfully, with a lot of time and energy and patience, especially from my wife, we've gotten to the point where it's just a really good balance. And this is the most comfortable in my skin I've ever felt as an entrepreneur as a result.
That's awesome.
But it's a journey and it takes time. And
if it were easy, everyone would do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but sometimes I do wish it was a little bit easier.
Well, maybe a little bit easier. I mean, come on.
Yeah, unfortunately. But yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming and
thanks for having me.
Being on the Vantastic
Voyage. Yeah. Thanks for bringing up the idea last night at the bar and then tapping me in this afternoon. I appreciate it.
I like getting the stories out.
Yeah, no, it's great.
It's fun. Great. Yeah. The relationships, the efforts, it's all very interesting, and especially on the tech side.
Yeah.
It's revolutionary like we've never seen before. We're going to look back at these days and say, wow, that's where it really jumped off. So
yeah.
It's like documenting it. Talking to folks.
Yeah, no, it's great. Seeing the chart and the journey for sure.
For being with us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right.